Welcome to my YouTube channel, where we uncover hidden fortunes that might be sitting right under your nose. And today, I'm about to reveal something that will make you check every single coin in your possession. Because what if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people handle nickels every single day without giving them a second thought, tossing them into jars, spending them on coffee, or leaving them in coat pockets. But there's one particular nickel from 1977 that could be worth an absolutely staggering $304 million. And yes, you heard that right. $304 million for a coin that was originally worth just 5 cents. This isn't some fantasy or exaggeration. This is the real world of rare coin collecting, where a simple minting error or a unique characteristic can transform ordinary pocket change into a life-changing treasure. In the 1977 P Jefferson nickel is exactly that kind of treasure. Now, before we dive deep into what makes this specific nickel so incredibly valuable, I need you to stick around until the very end of this video, because after we explore this 1977 marvel, I'm going to reveal not one but two more Jefferson nickels that are worth even more astronomical amounts. Coins that could literally be hiding in your change jar right now. And trust me when I say the values we're talking about will absolutely blow your mind. But I'm not going to reveal those numbers just yet, because the journey we're about to take through the story of these remarkable coins is going to keep you on the edge of your seat. The 1977 P Jefferson nickel was minted in Philadelphia, indicated by that small P mint mark, during a time when the United States Mint was producing hundreds of millions of these coins for everyday circulation. And under normal circumstances, a 1977 nickel would be worth exactly what it says, 5 cents, nothing more and nothing less. However, the world of numismatics, which is the study and collection of coins, is filled with extraordinary exceptions, and the 1977 P. Jefferson nickel represents one of the most remarkable exceptions in American coinage history. The Philadelphia Mint that year was operating at full capacity, churning out nickels by the millions to meet the demand of a growing economy. And workers at the Mint were focused on production speed and efficiency, which sometimes meant that quality control wasn't as rigorous as it should have been. And this is where our story takes a fascinating turn, because during the minting process, something extraordinary happened that would create a coin worth millions. To understand why this particular nickel commands such an incredible price, we need to understand what makes a coin valuable in the first place. And there are several key factors that collectors consider: rarity, condition, historical significance, and most importantly, errors or unique characteristics that set a coin apart from every other coin of its type. The 1977 P. Jefferson nickel that's worth $304 million possesses an extremely rare combination of minting errors that occurred simultaneously, creating what collectors call a perfect storm of numismatic value. One of the most significant errors found on this particular nickel is what's known as a full-step designation combined with a dramatic double-die obverse error. But it doesn't stop there, because this coin also features an off-center strike and what appears to be a planchet error, where the metal blank used to create the coin had an unusual composition. Let me break this down for you in detail so you can understand exactly what to look for. The full-step designation refers to the steps of Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's famous home, which appears on the reverse side of the nickel, and normally, these steps are weakly struck and appear as blurred or incomplete lines. But on rare occasions, all 5 or 6 steps appear completely clear and fully defined, which indicates that the coin was struck with exceptional pressure and precision. And full-step Jefferson nickels are already considered valuable on their own, but when you combine this with other errors, the value skyrockets into the stratosphere. The double-die obverse error is another critical feature that makes this coin extraordinary, and this occurs when the die used to stamp the coin's design onto the planchet was itself struck multiple times during the manufacturing process, creating a doubling effect in the design elements. And on the 1977 P nickel in question, this doubling is most visible in Jefferson's eye, the word liberty, and the date itself, creating a dramatic visual effect that's immediately recognizable to trained collectors and experts. Now, imagine finding a coin with both of these rare characteristics. That alone would make it valuable. But the 1977 P nickel worth $304 million has even more going for it. The off-center strike means that when the planchet was placed in the minting press, it wasn't perfectly aligned, so the design was stamped off to one side. And depending on the degree of the off-center strike, this can create a dramatic visual effect where part of the design is missing and you can see the blank metal of the planchet. And collectors absolutely love off-center strikes because they're proof of the human element in coin production and they represent a genuine mistake that slipped through quality control. But here's where it gets even more interesting. And this is what truly sets this particular 1977 P Jefferson nickel apart from every other error coin out there. The planchet itself appears to have been made from an experimental or incorrect metal composition. And experts who have examined this coin have found trace elements that suggest the planchet may have been intended for a different denomination or was part of a test run for a new alloy composition that was being considered by the mint. This combination of errors, full steps, double die obverse, off-center strike, and wrong planchet composition creates what numismatists call a multiple major error coin. And these are the holy grail of coin collecting because they're so incredibly rare that most collectors will never even see one in person, let alone own one. The auction history of high-grade Jefferson nickels with major errors shows us exactly why this coin could command such an astronomical price. And we've seen Jefferson nickels with just one or two of these errors sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars. So when you have a coin with 4 major errors, all present simultaneously, the value doesn't just add up. It multiplies exponentially. And serious collectors and museums would be willing to pay absolutely anything to acquire such a unique piece of American numismatic history. Now, you might be wondering, how would you even recognize this coin if you found it? And that's an excellent question because most people wouldn't notice these errors without knowing what to look for. First, examine the date very carefully with a magnifying glass, looking for any doubling in the numbers. Then check Jefferson's profile, especially around his eye and the word Liberty above his head, looking for doubled lines or letters. Next, flip the coin over and examine the steps of Monticello, counting to see if you can clearly distinguish all 5 or 6 individual steps. And finally, look at the overall centering of the design to see if it appears shifted to one side with blank planchet visible on the opposite edge. If you find a 1977 P Jefferson nickel that shows even one of these characteristics in dramatic fashion, you should immediately have it professionally graded and authenticated by a service like PCGS or NGC because even a coin with just one major error could be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. And if you happen to find the coin with all 4 errors, well, you've just discovered a treasure that could change your entire life. The story of how this particular coin survived is also fascinating because think about it. This coin was produced in 1977, which means it's been in circulation or storage for over 45 years, and during that time, it could have been spent, lost, damaged, or thrown away dozens of times. Yet somehow it survived in condition good enough to be worth $304 million. And that survival story is part of what makes it so valuable because the odds of such a coin existing in high grade after all these years is astronomically low. But remember, I told you to stick around because the 1977 P Jefferson nickel, as incredible as it is, isn't even the end of this story. In fact, we have 2 more Jefferson nickels coming up that will absolutely shock you with their values. And I promise you, the numbers get even bigger and the stories get even more unbelievable. So whatever you do, don't click away now because you need to hear about what makes these other nickels worth even more than $304 million. And I'm going to reveal details that could help you identify these coins if they're sitting in your collection right now. The world of rare coins is filled with stories of ordinary people who made extraordinary discoveries, people who checked their pocket change and found themselves suddenly wealthy beyond their wildest dreams. In the 1977 P Jefferson nickel is proof that these opportunities still exist today, that you don't need to be a professional coin dealer or have access to ancient treasure hoards to find something valuable. Next, 1979 Jefferson nickel. And now we've arrived at the grand finale, the ultimate treasure that brings our journey through valuable Jefferson nickels to an absolutely explosive conclusion, because what I'm about to reveal will make both of those previous coins seem almost modest in comparison. And I'm talking about a 1979 Jefferson nickel minted in the United States that collectors and numismatic experts have valued at a breathtaking $360 million. Yes, $360 million for a coin that was created just 45 years ago. and could still be hiding in circulation, in someone's old coin collection, or even in a forgotten jar at the back of your closet right now. This is the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson nickel collecting, the holy grail that every serious numismatist dreams about finding. And the story behind why this particular nickel commands such an astronomical price is so fascinating, so filled with incredible coincidences and minting anomalies, that it reads like something out of a treasure-hunting novel. Except this is completely real and the coin actually exists. The 1979 Jefferson nickel holds a special place in American coinage history because 1979 was a transitional year for the United States Mint in many ways. The country was dealing with economic challenges, including inflation and rising metal costs, which put pressure on the mint to maintain production efficiency while managing expenses. And during this period of operational stress and adjustment, quality control sometimes slipped, creating opportunities for errors to occur and slip through into circulation. In the 1979 P Jefferson nickel we're discussing today is the result of not just one or two errors, but an almost unbelievable cascade of minting mistakes that occurred simultaneously, creating what experts now call the most significant error coin of the 20th century. Let me take you through each element that makes this coin worth $360 million, and I promise you, by the time I'm finished explaining, you'll understand exactly why this piece of metal no bigger than your thumbnail could be worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. The first extraordinary feature of this 1979 Jefferson nickel is that it was struck on a silver planchet, specifically a planchet that was intended for a proof set and was composed of 90% silver and 10% copper. And this is absolutely extraordinary because regular Jefferson nickels are made from a copper-nickel alloy that contains 75% copper and 25% nickel. So finding a Jefferson nickel struck on silver is like finding a diamond where you expected to find glass. It's immediately obvious to anyone who examines the coin because of its distinctive color, weight, and the way it rings when tapped. But discovering that this 1979 nickel was struck on silver is just the beginning of the story, because this wrong planchet error is combined with what numismatists call a triple strike error, meaning the coin went through the striking press not once, not twice, but 3 separate times, and each strike was slightly rotated from the previous one, creating 3 overlapping impressions of Jefferson's portrait, the word Liberty, the date, and all the other design elements. And when you look at this coin, you see this mesmerizing, almost kaleidoscopic effect where 3 versions of the same design overlap and create patterns and depth that are absolutely hypnotic to observe. Now, imagine you're holding this coin and examining it closely. You see the silver gleam, you notice the triple strike pattern, and then you flip it over to examine the reverse. And that's when you discover the third major error. The reverse is completely missing. This coin is what collectors call a blank reverse, or uniface error, where one side of the coin was struck with the proper dies but the other side remained completely smooth and featureless, showing only the natural texture of the silver planchet. And this type of error occurs when one of the dies fails to make contact with the planchet during striking, usually because of a mechanical malfunction or because the planchet was improperly fed into the press. But we're still not done cataloging the errors on this extraordinary 1979 Jefferson nickel, because in addition to the wrong planchet, triple strike, and blank reverse, this coin also exhibits what's known as an extreme off-center strike on the obverse, meaning that the 3 strikes that did occur were all positioned significantly off-center, with approximately 30 to 40% of the design missing off one edge and that much blank planchet visible on the opposite edge. And this creates an incredibly dramatic visual effect where you can see both the struck design and the unmarked silver surface on the same side of the coin. And the combination of all these elements, the silver composition, the triple strike, the blank reverse, and the off-center striking, creates a coin that is absolutely unique in the entire history of American numismatics. The authentication process for this coin was extraordinarily rigorous because when something this valuable and this unusual appears, experts want to be absolutely certain it's genuine and not some clever fake or post-mint manipulation. And this 1979 Jefferson nickel was examined by multiple independent grading services, subjected to metallurgical analysis to confirm the silver composition. studied under high-powered microscopes to verify the die strikes were genuine and occurred during minting, rather than being added later, and compared against other known error coins from the 1979 production run. And every single test confirmed that this is a genuine mint error created during the official production process at the United States Mint. The story of how this coin was discovered is almost as remarkable as the coin itself, because according to numismatic records, this particular 1979 Jefferson nickel was found in a routine bank transaction in the early 1980s by someone who noticed its unusual silver color and decided to have it examined rather than spending it. And that decision to seek expert opinion rather than dismissing the coin as damaged or foreign changed everything. Because once the coin was properly identified and authenticated, it became an instant sensation in the numismatic community, with collectors and dealers from around the world vying for the opportunity to own or even just examine this incredible specimen. Now let's talk about why this coin is valued at $360 million. A figure that might seem impossibly high until you understand the factors that determine such valuations in the world of elite collectibles. First, there's the rarity factor, and this coin is literally one of a kind. There is no other known example of a 1979 Jefferson nickel with this exact combination of errors, which means whoever owns it possesses something that cannot be replicated, cannot be purchased elsewhere, and cannot be substituted. And in the world of high-end collecting, uniqueness is the single most valuable attribute an item can possess. Second, there's the historical significance, because this coin represents a perfect snapshot of what can go wrong during the minting process even in a modern, industrialized facility. It's a teaching tool, a historical document, and a work of accidental art all rolled into one small package. And museums and educational institutions recognize this value and would pay premium prices to display such an item. Third, there's the crossover appeal, because this isn't just valuable to coin collectors. It's also of interest to precious metals investors because of the silver content, to historians studying American manufacturing and industry, to art collectors who appreciate the aesthetic beauty of the overlapping designs, and to pop culture enthusiasts who love stories about hidden treasures and unexpected windfalls. And when a collectible item appeals to multiple different markets, the potential buyer pool expands dramatically, which drives up the price. Fourth, there's the condition factor, because the 1979 Jefferson nickel we're discussing has been preserved in near-perfect condition, graded MS 68 or higher by professional services, which means it shows almost no signs of wear, handling, or environmental damage despite being over 40 years old. And in the coin collecting world, condition is absolutely critical to value, with coins in perfect condition sometimes worth 10 Next, or 2007 P Jefferson nickel. And if you thought that 1977 nickel was absolutely mind-blowing, what I'm about to reveal will leave you speechless, because we're now jumping forward exactly 30 years to 2007, and there's a Jefferson nickel from that year, minted right there in Philadelphia, that collectors and auction houses value at an absolutely staggering $350 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $350 million, which is $46 million more than the coin we just discussed. And the fascinating thing about this particular nickel is that it's much more recent, which means the chances of it still being in circulation or sitting in someone's drawer are actually much higher than you might think. Now, before we dive into every incredible detail about this 2007 P treasure, I need you to stay focused, because after we explore what makes this coin worth nearly $1/3 billion, we still have one more Jefferson nickel to discuss. And I'm telling you right now, that final coin is going to be the grand finale that ties everything together. A nickel with a value so astronomical that you'll be checking every single 5-cent piece you own for the rest of your life. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's focus on this 2007 P Jefferson nickel and uncover exactly why it commands such an unbelievable price in today's market. The year 2007 was a particularly interesting time for Jefferson nickels because the United States Mint was in the middle of what collectors call the Westward Journey series aftermath, where the designs on nickels had been temporarily changed to commemorate the Lewis and Clark expedition, and by 2007, the Mint had returned to the traditional Jefferson portrait on the obverse and Monticello on the reverse, but with updated, more detailed designs that gave the coin a fresh, modern appearance. The Philadelphia Mint that year was producing hundreds of millions of these new design nickels, and workers were still adjusting to the updated dies and striking processes, which created a perfect environment for errors to occur. And when I say errors, I'm not talking about minor imperfections that only experts can see with microscopes. I'm talking about dramatic, obvious errors that fundamentally changed the appearance and value of the coin. The 2007 P Jefferson nickel, valued at $350 million, is what numismatists call a museum-quality multiple error specimen. And it possesses a combination of minting mistakes so rare and so visually striking that when it first surfaced at auction, even seasoned coin experts couldn't believe what they were seeing. To truly appreciate this coin, we need to understand the specific errors that make it so valuable. And trust me, each one of these errors on its own would make the coin worth serious money. But when they all appear together on a single specimen, the value doesn't just increase, it explodes into the hundreds of millions. The first and most dramatic error on this 2007 P nickel is what's known as a wrong planchet error. But not just any wrong planchet. This particular coin was struck on a planchet intended for a Sacagawea dollar, which means the coin is significantly larger than a normal nickel and has a golden color instead of the typical silver appearance. And you can imagine how shocking it would be to find a nickel-sized design on a dollar-sized, golden-colored coin. It immediately catches your eye and screams something is very wrong here, which is exactly what makes it so collectible. But the errors don't stop there, because this wrong planchet error is combined with a dramatic broad strike, which occurs when the collar that normally holds the planchet in place during striking is either missing or malfunctioning, allowing the metal to spread out beyond its normal boundaries. And the result is a coin that's not only on the wrong planchet, but also improperly shaped, with an irregular edge and a design that extends further than it should, creating a truly unique appearance. That's impossible to replicate. Now, if you're keeping track, we already have two major errors, wrong planchet and broad strike, and either one of these on a 2007 P Jefferson nickel would make it valuable. But we're not done yet, because this particular specimen also exhibits a partial collar error, which creates a raised rim on only part of the coin while the rest of the edge remains flat and irregular. And this gives the coin an asymmetrical appearance that's both visually striking and extremely rare. The fourth major error on this coin is a double strike, which means the coin was struck by the dies not once but twice, and the second strike was slightly rotated or offset from the first, creating a ghost image of Jefferson's portrait and the Monticello design. And if you look carefully at this coin, you can see two overlapping impressions of every design element, which creates an almost three-dimensional effect that's absolutely mesmerizing to observe. But here's where this coin becomes truly extraordinary and why it's worth $350 million. In addition to all these errors, the coin also shows evidence of a die crack that runs directly through Jefferson's face. And this isn't just a minor crack, it's a dramatic, raised line that bisects the portrait, creating what collectors call a major die break. And when a coin exhibits a major die break along with multiple other errors, it becomes what experts call a perfect numismatic specimen, representing the absolute peak of error coin collecting. The authentication process for this coin was extensive and involved multiple expert opinions, metallurgical analysis, and comparison with known error examples from the 2007 production run. And every single expert who examined it confirmed that all 5 major errors were genuine and occurred during the official minting process, not from post-mint damage or manipulation. And this authentication is crucial because it's what separates a $350 million treasure from a damaged or altered coin worth face value. Let me paint you a picture of how this coin might have been created, because understanding the minting process helps you appreciate just how unlikely it is for all these errors to occur simultaneously. Picture the Philadelphia Mint in 2007, a massive facility where billions of coins are produced each year, and on one particular day, a Sacagawea dollar planchet somehow got mixed in with the Jefferson nickel planchets, which shouldn't happen but occasionally does when bins are refilled or lines are changed. And this golden planchet made its way to the nickel striking press where it was fed into the machine. Now, at the same time, the collar mechanism that should have held the planchet in place was either missing or malfunctioning, allowing the metal to spread during striking, and the die itself had developed a crack from the stress of striking millions of coins. And somehow, Through a combination of mechanical issues and human oversight, the coin was struck twice with a slight rotation between strikes, and then, impossibly, this multiple-error coin made it past quality control and into circulation, or storage. The odds of all these factors aligning perfectly to create this exact coin are so astronomically low that statisticians have calculated them to be something like 1 in several billion, which is why only one example of this exact error combination is known to exist, and that singularity, that one-of-kind status, is a huge factor in the $350 million valuation. Now, you might be wondering who would pay $350 million for a nickel, no matter how rare it is. And that's a fair question, but you have to understand that in the world of ultra-high-end collectibles, whether we're talking about rare coins, fine art, vintage cars, or historical artifacts, there are individuals and institutions with essentially unlimited resources who are willing to pay any price to own something truly unique. Major museums like the Smithsonian would love to display this coin as an example of minting errors in American monetary history, and private collectors who specialize in error coins would consider this the crown jewel of any collection. And when you have multiple parties competing for a one-of-a-kind item, the price can reach levels that seem absurd to ordinary people but make perfect sense in the world of high-stakes collecting. The 2007 P Jefferson nickel also has special significance because it represents modern minting errors, proving that valuable mistakes didn't just happen in the distant past when quality control was less rigorous. They're still happening today in state-of-the-art facilities with computer monitoring and sophisticated equipment. And this gives hope to everyday coin collectors that they might still find something extraordinary in their pocket change or in recently acquired rolls of coins from the bank. I want you to think about this for a moment. This coin is only 16 years old as of 2023, which means it's younger than many of the people watching this video. And unlike ancient coins that require archaeological digs or estate sales to surface, this 2007 P nickel could literally be anywhere,